Hello, welcome to Mr. Paul's Pantry. I'm Mr. Paul. If you're new here, a very warm welcome. If you're a returning visitor, it's nice to see you back again. Now, today's recipe is something I've been asked for many times, and I don't want to disappoint you, but it's nothing fancy, okay? I'm just an ordinary high street baker. I don't do fancy patisserie things. This is a traditional custard tart. You don't pre-bake the pastry, you don't add cream, etc. We don't add vanilla essence. Before you all start writing in, vanilla essence has no place in an English custard tart. Okay, if you enjoyed the video, go below afterwards, give it a thumbs up, let me know you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, suggestions, or you want to make comments, do so underneath. I do read them all and I try to answer as many as I possibly can. Okay, so off we go now with a traditional English custard tart. So here we've got the ingredients for the sweet pastry. I'm using 250 grams of plain flour, 130 grams of butter, which has to be cold because I'm going to make the pastry in my food processor. If you use soft butter in there, it doesn't work so well. So that needs to be very cold. 130 grams, 60 grams of sugar. I'm using white caster sugar. 1 egg. I will beat that up before I use it. 20 milliliters or grams of milk and a pinch of salt. There's 2 grams there, and I just put 1 pinch in. I have weighed it. It's 2 grams if you want to weigh it, or 1/4 teaspoon. So those are the ingredients, and we'll get on with making the pastry. So we're going to use the food processor today. In goes the flour. That's 250 grams, and also we're going to add the salt. That's a pinch of salt, and the cold butter. Now I did say before, it is important this butter is cold. If you're mixing the pastry by hand, it doesn't really matter. The softer is better because you can handle it easier. But in here, it works so quickly. If it's soft, the butter, it'll stick to the sides and it won't work so well. So we're just going to mix that until it's pulse it, until it's sort of like breadcrumbs. You don't want to mix it until it starts coming together yet. Now you can see there, it is pretty much like breadcrumbs. The butter is in little pieces, it's not all mushed up into a paste. So now we're going to add the sugar, and I'm going to give that another little mix. Just that's all. And now we're going to add the egg. And lastly, we're going to add the milk. Now we need to pulse this now until it just starts coming together, and we'll finish it off by hand, okay? It's just starting to come together, you can probably see that. Have a look at it. You can just see that now, how it's starting to come together. Just a couple more turns. Now that's coming together nicely, you can see. I'm going to put that out on the work surface now and just put it together by hand. And we're going to put this onto the work surface. It's just started coming together, as you can see. There we are. And we want to just squash it together so we get a nice smooth paste. We're not going to knead it like bread, but we're just going to push it together so we've got a nice soft paste. Pick all the little bits of crumbs up. Now, I don't know if you can see that on there, but that's how soft it is. It's a lovely, smooth, soft paste. So what we need to do now, very important, is form it into a little flat cake like that. We're going to wrap it in cling film, and that's going to be refrigerated for at least 30 to 40 minutes. Been in the fridge now for about an hour and a half. Sometimes in the bakery, of course, we used to leave it overnight because we hadn't time to do everything at once that morning. So a lot of things were done the night before, so it doesn't matter if you leave it overnight. Now just lightly dust the surface, and a little on the pin. And first of all, we're going to just, because if we start rolling it right away, the first thing that's going to happen is it will crack, and we don't want that. Keep it on the move so it doesn't stick. When you feel it's sort of soft enough to start rolling a little bit, then we can start to go gently, gently. Turn it about a third of the way each time, just to... Now if you're going to make a flan this size, you will have to pre-cook the pastry, what we call blind baking it, before you put the filling in, because you'll have disasters if you try to do it otherwise. If you're doing what we did in the bakery, making small custard tarts in tins like this, or in foils, we used to make them, it's not necessary. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pop this into the tin, easing it down gently into the corners with our thumbs. Lift up the sides and then it'll drop down into the corners with its own weight, okay, like that. Trim that round, and then I'll just thin these sides out a little bit by pulling it up to the top. There we go. Now, because of the size of it, it's not going to be necessary to blind bake that. If you were going to blind bake it, what you would do is you would dock that all the way along inside of the bottom, and for a tart this size, you won't need to even put baking beans in. You could just blind bake it like that. But if you're making a big one like this, then you would have to put beans or rice or something like that inside to stop it raising up in the middle. Okay, so here's my tart. Show you now how we're going to finish it off. So we're going to make custard now for the custard tart. I've got 450 mils of milk, or grams, I weigh mine, grams. I've got 3 eggs, which once they're out of the shell will weigh about 150 grams. 3 eggs and 75 grams of sugar. I'm using white sugar, granulated or caster, it doesn't make any difference. In fact, the sugar we buy in Spain here, it's all one grade and it's usually as fine as caster sugar. So there it is. It's the milk, the eggs and the sugar, and then to top it off, once we get it in the pastry cases, a little nutmeg on top. Okay, so we'll get that going now. We'll crack the eggs into the bowl. And we'll put the milk in as well. You will notice I haven't put the sugar in first. A lot of people, chefs included, put the milk in last. They put the eggs and the milk and the sugar in and beat them together. Now what we find when we do in biggish quantities in the bakery, if we do that, we get lots of little bits of egg yolk floating about on top that haven't mixed up, and it's very difficult to get rid of them afterwards. Okay, now we don't want to make a lot of bubbles in this if we can help it. We just want to break down the egg into the milk, and now we're going to add the sugar and stir that until it's dissolved. We don't have to whisk it or beat it, we just want to stir it until it's dissolved. It won't take long, it should all be dissolved now. And then what we're going to do next is I'm going to take another bowl, and I'm going to strain that, because there's always a little bit of egg white that doesn't get mixed in. So we'll strain that into another bowl. There we go. And I'm going to leave that now, not in the fridge or anywhere. I'm just going to leave it sitting on the work surface for about 20-25 minutes for it to rest. That way the custard will set a lot nicer and a lot quicker. So the pastry cases have been sitting in the oven now, in the fridge now for about 30-40 minutes. Get them nice and cool. That will prevent them shrinking too much when they go into the hot oven. And we're going to fill the cases as near to the top as we possibly can without spilling it when I carry it to the oven. And sprinkle the nutmeg on top. Now these are going to go in the oven now for about 25 minutes at 170. 25 minutes at 170. And I'll see you when they come out. Okay, these are just out of the oven now, and as you can see, I hope, there's still a little wobble on them. Can you see the custard wobbling there? That's just how it should be. These were in exactly 25 minutes. Okay, these are proper homemade custard tarts. They're not fancy, they're not French patisseries, they're good wholesome custard tarts. When they're cooled, I'll cut one and let's have a look inside. So here we are with the finished tart. It looks absolutely delightful. It's firm, it's creamy, and it's very, very tasty. Don't forget, Mr. Paul saying bye for now, and I'll see you next time.